Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Multifamily with the amazing, the one and only Veena Jetti. Thank you for coming today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And today we're going to be talking about the value add. So please tell us, what is the value add when it comes to multifamily?
So value add is exactly what it sounds like. It's adding value to the asset, and there's three main ways that you can do that. So the first is going to be by increasing your income. Increase your income. 1A is increasing rent. The second way is through increasing income by adding additional income. And then the third way is going to be through cutting expenses or managing more efficiently.
Gotcha. And when it comes to adding or increasing the value of your property, I know that there are some improvements that you can make. So how do you know which type of improvements are the ones that you should be doing for your buildings?
Yes, that's an important question to ask too, because you don't want to over renovate, right? You don't want to not overput. What's the word I'm looking for?
Pretty much, you don't want to spend way more than necessary.
Yes, you don't want to overinvest, over-improve. Right. That's what it is, over-improve. I'm like, overput isn't the right word. Over-improve. You don't want to over-improve your assets, right? So if you're in an area where all of your competitors have stainless steel or have hardwood flooring throughout or smart home packages, then you likely are going to want to spend that money to put that into your assets too. But if your closest 5 properties don't have any of that, then two things, right? Either one, the market may not be willing to pay for it, so you might not need it. Or two, nobody has done it yet and you can do it. So you maybe in that case, go in and test a unit and see what happens, or test 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever that is, so that you're not committing to the business plan of doing it, but you're seeing if the market can actually bear an increase for that improvement.
That's right, because I feel like that's one of the many rookie mistakes that we make when we start looking at multifamily improvements in this case, because sometimes you spend way too much money than needed, and in the end you end up losing actually money.
Yeah, I think the hardest is because people oftentimes think about it like, oh, well, if I was living there, I would want a dishwasher, or I want a washer and dryer in unit. Which is great. Like, you could have that in your place. I could have it in my place, but a tenant might not pay for it. So the investment might not be worth it for you to get the proper return.
That's right. And you mentioned that the tenant may not pay for that. So how do you know how much to charge a tenant based on the improvements that you have already made?
Yeah. So again, this is something you're going to want to look to what the market is charging, what your competitors are charging. If they're getting $75 per unit for washer and dryer, for example, it's likely you can charge that. Maybe you can get 80, maybe you can get 85, but generally you probably can get 75. The way we like to look at it is we want to see about a 3-year return on our investment. So for example, if we have a $3,600 improvement we're making, right? Like, let's say that's what we're going to spend to put a smart home package and a hardwood floor package throughout, right? So we're going to spend $3,600. I want to see that return come back to us in rent increase in about 36 months. So every month I need to have about $100 of rent increase to justify me spending that $3,600. Now, that doesn't mean it's a hard and fast rule, but that's generally how we want to look at it.
That's right. And out of all the improvements that you have made, what is the most common one that you have had to do renovation-wise in your properties?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know that there's any one specific, because some assets will already have stainless steel, some won't. I would say the two really that we look to the most is one, smart home packages. So that's like adding a Ring doorbell or a Nest thermostat or smartphone controlled lights, Alexas, Google Home, stuff like that. So that's one. I'm going to give you 2 more actually.
Ooh,
I'm going to give 2 more. And these are really like
we're getting extra golden nuggets today.
These are great. Like very low hanging fruit. So it's like extra secret sauce. So the other 2 are, one is the amenity fee. So a lot of assets these days are charging you back for things like your landscaping contracts, your pool contract. All of those things can start getting charged back. So that could be like $5 or $10 a month. And then the other one, this is the bonus one I'm going to give you. The bonus is on your pest control. So a lot of times there will be a $2 to $5 pest control fee. So the question is, can you move it to like $6 to $8? Is adding $1 or $2 really going to make a tenant say no or yes. So that's something to consider when you're going into a new asset for acquisition.
Gotcha. But the cool thing is that when you have multiple buildings or in this case, multiple doors within multifamily, you can actually test it and see if those prices are something that your tenants would be willing to pay.
Yes.
So you mentioned that there are some ways to look at the market and see what amenities they're offering to their tenants. What are some other ways to look for ideas of improvements that you can do on your buildings?
Yeah. So we like to do what's called an amenity audit when we're going into an asset. So that means that we like to look at what is on our asset, what we can charge, what we're already charging from the current ownership. And then we also like to look at our nearby competitors. What are they charging? What are they doing? Are they seeing success with certain things? Are they not? And then we also like to look and see, hey, what have we done across our portfolio? Maybe in a different market or on a different asset that's done really well. What are some things there that we can add to this asset? And we're always thinking of new ways to improve resident life. So we want our residents to really love living there. We want them to recommend it to their friends because they probably know other good tenants for us. Right. So what we're looking to do is create a community and an environment where they want to be there. They enjoy being there. They treat it like home because we have a responsibility, right? We're providing homes for people and we want their home to be somewhere that they enjoy being.
And the cool thing is that since you already have a really good tenant base, they are already qualified with the credit and a good job, a stable job, a stable income. So they probably know people within those same characteristics as well. So that gives you a really good way to attract more tenants that are qualified as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do that through even local partnerships. So for example, you can reach out to your local grocery store and see if they'll give residents that shop there a discount because now they're getting scale, right? So you can do that with, we've had mobile groomers that come and park on our property once a month or once a quarter. And then they'll get more business because there's a lot of tenants there. And then our tenants enjoy it because they maybe get a little bit of a discount or the convenience of having a mobile groomer.
That's cool. And it's really cool that you're actually building that community. Yes. You're trying to do your best for your tenants.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to all of these buildings that you're looking at, how do you know if a building has the right potential of improvement? Because then again, there are so many units out there. You don't want to look for something that is like way too trashy that you're going to have to spend way too much fixing it. But at the same time, some of the newer or class A kind of buildings are a little bit pricier too. So how do you know if a building has the potential of being good after renovations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there's any specific way to necessarily know that, okay, this is definitely going to work or not. I think it more comes with experience of seeing different buildings over and over and over again and kind of seeing the potential in what you can do there. But this is where I would say you really want to rely a lot on your comps because if the market isn't calling for something, then you don't necessarily want to be the one implementing it or planning to. Now, you might want to be a first mover in something, but a lot of times in our space, there's a reason why they're not being implemented across other assets.
And you mentioned that you want to look at your comps. So I believe that along with those many numbers that you're looking at, there should be the cap rate. Am I right? And so how do you calculate the cap rate in the case of a multifamily building? Because they're pretty big. So
yeah, so cap rate is going to be the same no matter the size of the building. This is a very static calculation that's going to be the same time in, time out. So basically the way your cap rate is going to be calculated is you're going to take the NOI, which is your net operating income. To get your NOI, you're going to take your income minus your expenses, and that's your NOI, net operating income. You're going to take your NOI and you're going to divide it by the market value or the market rate. So let's say you have an NOI of $1 million and you're buying an asset for $10 million. Let's say 20 million. It's probably a little bit more realistic. $20 million. And even that's not that realistic, but you have 1 million, you're buying for 20 million. Your cap rate is going to be 5%.
Gotcha. And with this number, what other pieces of data do you also look at when you're thinking about doing some renovations to your units?
Yeah. So when we look at cap rate, the way that adding value or renovating units ties to cap rate is because when we renovate a unit, we assume that we can push the NOI higher. Right. If we can push the NOI higher, then we can have the cap rate be a higher number as well, which means your yield is higher. So when we go to sell it, if we assume that the cap rate has not moved, but the NOI has moved, the cap rate has stayed the same, that means that just by sheer numbers and mathematics, the market value will have increased, which is also called forced appreciation.
And with having so many multiple units, what do you think are some of the tips for someone that is looking to do some renovations to the units that they currently have?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you want to do is, one, go in and do an audit and see what's already on the asset. So what are they already doing there? Where are the opportunities for improvement? We like to go in and we like to make a list of everything we possibly can add. Even if it sounds ridiculous, we make a list of it, right? And then we take that list and we say, okay, Veena, this is ridiculous. We're not going to add like a yacht parking, right? Like that's dumb. We don't need to do that. So we dwindle the list down, and I'm joking about that. I don't really put that, but like, for example, let's say we wanted to add valet parking, right? That's not really something that most Class B asset, if any, is going to need, but that might be something you do on a Class A asset because it might be a value add component to it. So you want to look to see what the market really can call from, make that big, long list, and then you are going to dwindle that down. And then the key is to know how many units you're going to implement it to, when you're going to implement it. Are you going to do all of them on lease turnover? Is it going to take you 3 years? Is it going to take you 5 years? What does that look like? And then you're going to want to look at the total cost. So let's say your rent plus all the amenities and all of the additional income you want to charge is going to be $2,000 per month, right? Then I know that in order to qualify for our assets, you have to make 3x the monthly rent. So I need you to make $6,000 a month. And let's say the average median income of the area is $50,000. I know that there's not enough tenants that can afford this in order for it to be worth it. So then we maybe would pull back on what we would do in that area.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it's really cool that you're actually analyzing not only the numbers when it comes to the building itself and what the market is doing, but also the people that would be possibly the tenants for that same building.
Yes.
Any last tips for people that are looking for starting into multifamily renovations? Is it as hard as people make it sound?
I think it's I do think it's challenging. I think that there is a lot of moving pieces and a lot of planning that goes into it, a lot of contingency planning. I think one thing that people overlook sometimes is if you like the value add space and you like the business plan of adding value, you don't necessarily need to be the active sponsor on a deal. You can invest with somebody whose business plan this is, right? So someone could invest in a company like ours and they could say, okay, Veena, I don't want to know anything about what our comps are doing, but I want you to know that. So they could invest with a company like ours. And there's many companies that do this. And then they could just have a completely hands-off role. So I think anytime you're interested in multifamily, to understand whether you really want to be active or passive first is the most important. And then if you want to be active or passive, drilling down into which strategy makes sense for you and your portfolio is the next thing to do.
And the cool thing I feel like about multifamily is that even if you started active or passive, you can always transition between both of them because your partner should be able to help you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So obviously I'm an active investor, but we also invest passively with other sponsors, and in our own portfolio, we invest.
Thank you so much again,
Thank
Veena.
you.
And thank you to our audience. So there you have it. Multiple options for you to start into your multifamily game. We're going to see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.